Obviously, the big story in these finals has been Steph Curry. Will he win his fourth ring? Will he win his second ring without Kevin Durant? Will he be finals MVP? Will this make him a top 10 player of all time? So on and so forth. And here's what I want to throw out to you, Rob Parker. Because we know, look, I think you agree with me. We don't belittle championships. Sometimes a team either wins it or has an easier road because the opponent is injured.
Right, but you still win it. It still counts.
Right. We still give credit where credit is due because it's not – look, some of it is a marathon. And if your team has been able to stay healthy, that's something that you should be credited for as well.
And we said this the other day. It ain't that easy. LeBron's been 19 seasons in the NBA, played with a mess of great players.
Right.
And has won 4 times. It ain't that easy. So when you win a championship, you got to give people credit. As Charlie
Wilt Chamberlain won 2.
Right.
The best numbers in the history of the game, and he got 2 rings. All right? So it is difficult to win championship. Dr. J, I give Dr. J 3 championships because he won 2 in the ABA.
No, he won those in the ABA, right?
But in the NBA, he won 1. And so Moses Malone, Rob, a wonderful player, fantastic, one of the greatest centers ever. He's got 1. So it's hard to do. That's a great point. So we don't take anything away from anyone's championships. However, all championships are not created equal. Dwayne Wade's got 3, Rob. His best was 2006, right?
That's when he shot a million free throws.
Yep. Okay. But it was just him and the older Shaq. It wasn't with LeBron James. LeBron, his best championship when he led Cleveland to the ring coming back from 3-1 down in 2016. You know? And so here's what I want to throw out to you, Rob. Would this be Steph Curry's best championship? Beat Cleveland in 2015, beat Cleveland. Actually, they beat Cleveland all the time, 2017 and 2018. Would this 4th one be his best ring in your view?
Obviously, it just depends on how it plays out. You know, like that would be the other part, Chris, how it finishes. And if he has a big game to close it out and he's the MVP, then I would agree with that. Because the first one, while they beat Cleveland, you know, there were some injuries there. Even their road to the finals, if you remember, right? I think most of each team they played that year had somebody out. So if you wanted to nitpick over that one, you could. The 2 with Kevin Durant, obviously he contributed and played well. But Durant got a lot of credit because he joined. Remember, he came after they choked down a 3-1 lead. And then he was the finals MVP those 2 years. Okay. So I think that this would count if Steph is the one to close it out. The only caveat, or the only thing I would say, Chris, is if somehow, some way, you know, they're forced to a Game 7 and he doesn't play well and he doesn't get the MVP and somebody else does, I don't know if you would look at it and hoist that up. I think Steph has to be the big money player and has to win the MVP for it to be, like, without question, a shining moment.
Well, I want to get back to that in a minute because that's very interesting, you know, scenario you painted. But I do think this will be his best if they win it. Even if he's not, I think he's going to be the finals MVP. He's averaging 30 points per game. But even if he weren't, like, again, like to your scenario, if he didn't play that well in the next 2 games and Andrew Wiggins, for instance, continues to dominate rebounding and scoring, would he be and he was the MVP? I still think it would be his best, Rob, and here's why.
Okay.
He didn't win the MVP in 2015. I think he should have, but he didn't. And so this one would be equal with that. He didn't win the finals MVP in either one. You wouldn't say one of the Durant championships because he was the second best player on the team at that time. And the difference between this year, so we're down to this one and 2015. And 2015, to your point, the Cavaliers were banged up. Kyrie Irving was hurt. Kevin Love was hurt. Their second and third best players. And this one, there would be no injuries, right? Like Jason Tatum is healthy. Jaylen Brown is healthy. And you're right. Look, years from now, people aren't going to remember what Boston went through if they don't win this championship. They're not going to remember, for the most part, right, that they beat Kevin Durant, that they beat Giannis Antetokounmpo, that they beat Jimmy Butler to get here. So I won't even throw that out. But that's why now Rob, you could argue, hey, he beat LeBron James.
Right.
Even if other guys were hurt, LeBron obviously is better than Tatum and Brown. So would that tip the scales for you for 2015 maybe?
Well, here's the other thing, too, I think about this year, Chris. If he doesn't finish off strong and doesn't win the MVP, you would look like he gave up the Finals MVP, that he was clearly the best player through the first three or four games, and then right through the first four, and then had the bad game 5, and then if there's a 6 and 7, and he doesn't play well enough to get the well they lose or whatever. No, they win, but they win in game 7, Chris. Right. But he's not the MVP. You would say Steph gave it up. Steph was clearly the best player through the first 4 games and should have been the MVP. And didn't close it out. That's why I think I would look at 2015 better than this one if he's not the MVP, because he was clearly the MVP after the first 4 games.
What if, say goes 7 and he doesn't, because I don't think he was terrible in game 5. Well, he wasn't good, but he had 8 assists. Some of them were really nice. And obviously, he's still a decoy out there that opened things up for his teammates and played good defense. I'm not saying he was Giannis, but he played good defense. But let's say he has, mediocre games like that. Scores maybe 18 a game over the next 2, and they win, and he's Finals MVP. Because that's a real scenario, Rob. That he could maybe have 2 pretty good games or mediocre games and still be the MVP. It could happen just because people want to give it to him, almost a lifetime achievement. Or it could happen because, maybe it's not Wiggins. Maybe Wiggins just plays okay too, but Draymond has a great game. Or Clay has a great game. Like each of them has one great game.
I understand.
So would that solidify this one for you, or would you still look at it as, okay, he was Finals MVP, but he wasn't great over his last 3 games?
No, I think if he wins the Finals MVP, I think that would make it the best. I just say if he doesn't, that would be the best to me, because he finally got that, checked that box, and that's why I'm saying if he doesn't, even though they win and Wiggins wins it because he hits the game-winning shot in the 4th quarter. I'm just giving you a scenario,
right? Then
I think it would be like, okay, that was great. Steph played well in the first 4, but kind of faded at the end, and they did it. They won in spite of Steph not being Steph. So I think that's why I would take 2015.
Last thing, I've said this. If they win this title and he doesn't win Finals MVP, obviously he's got his 4th ring, and everyone will have to acknowledge that. But Rob, I do feel like some people will kind of act. They'll almost treat it like he didn't win.
No,
because he wasn't the Finals MVP. Where you at on that?
I don't think you could do that. He won. They won. He has 4 rings. I wouldn't do that. But I think if you're starting to look at when you're checking, when you're ranking, Chris, don't you think that would be? You would look at that, and that would hurt him. I'm talking about with the all-time greats.
Look at
right. You could use that as a demerit. That's all.
He's got other things. He's got the unanimous MVP. But this would be definitely a knock against him. Because I say it. I think he should have gotten it in 2015.
Right.
But he didn't. You got to go by the official numbers.
He doesn't have
I may think Klay Thompson should have been a top 75, but you know what? He wasn't. So we got to go by the official
Kyrie wasn't
record.
a top 75. Right.
we got to
think
go
Dwight
with
Howard
the official.
should have been top 75.
Yep.
He's not.
I don't think AD should have.
Right.
Not at this point, but he is. So we got to acknowledge the official rankings. And that's the NBA giving those out, so we acknowledge it. All right.